First up, the Coxes. For Oxford, Morgan Bainham-Williams is a debutant, but one with international experience.
We go out there and we race because we love racing.
American Rosemary Osfeld returns to give orders to the Cambridge crew. And stroke, Lauren Pidar aims to make it a hat-trick of wins in dark blue, while Zara Guzzi takes part for the first time, having learned to row at Cambridge. At 7, the two presidents. Maddie Badcock is striving for her second straight win with Oxford.
It's so black and white. You have to win in second place. It's nothing.
Cambridge president Hannah Roberts steps up after 2 years of experience in the reserve boat.
You just make sure you control the nerves and excitement because it's such a huge occasion that you don't want it to overwhelm you.
At 6, hoping to make it 4 wins from 4 appearances, is last year's Oxford president Anastasia Chitty. For Cambridge, 27-year-old French international Myriam Goudet. In the Oxford 5 seat, Elo Luik becomes the first Estonian to earn a blue in either of the boat races.
You just want to beat Cambridge, but you also just want to find a new standard for yourself.
American Daphne Marchenko returns for Cambridge, hoping to make amends for last year's defeat. At 4, there's a first boat race for 20-year-old Ruth Sidorn. And there's a debut too in light blue for former dressage international Thea Zabel.
There is a really positive atmosphere. We can really win this year.
2 more first-timers at 3. Joanneke Jansen has represented the Netherlands at European level. Opposite her, UCL graduate Alice Jackson. At 2, and earning her first blue, Emma Spruce, while Fiona Macklin follows in the footsteps of her grandfather, who rowed for Cambridge in 1951.
He was such an inspiration. I feel unbelievably lucky to be able to sit in his seat and win for him this year.
And there is a Canadian flavour at bow. Harvard graduate Emma Lukasiewicz made the move to rowing from downhill skiing, while 27-year-old Ashton Brown has dual Australian-Canadian nationality. These are the crews of the 71st Women's Boat Race.
And those are the crews whose stomachs will be churning right now, and they will be trying to focus on the challenge ahead. Let's talk about the two Coxes. Morgan Bainham-Williams for Oxford, Rosemary Osfeld for Cambridge. Zoe, how do they shape up?
This is her third race on the Tideway. She's coxed the women's blue boat before, and Goldie as well for the reserve men. But Morgan is an extremely experienced international cox, and I really think that she will put her crew in an excellent place today.
Given the conditions today, is it likely that they will have pumps on board on these boats?
I'm pretty sure they will have their pumps on board. You need a good amount of water before it's worth taking the weight of the pumps, but given the conditions that are predicted, I suspect most of the coaches will have opted to put those pumps in.
And Kath, does that add weight? Must do.
It adds a small amount of weight. It doesn't make a huge difference, and I think because of the conditions, both crews will have them, and if both crews have them, then of course there's no real advantage in that.
Does that mean that it is much more difficult for a crew to sink, or is it still possible?
It's pretty difficult for a crew to sink, especially if you see the water up ahead is getting bad. You can move to find some better water. It is, of course, still possible. They are small boats. If the waves are high enough, it gets worse and worse the more water fills up into the boat, so it can happen.
It just makes life more difficult. Not that they will be thinking about that at all. I guess it's all positive right now, is it all?
I suspect they will, although the coxes will be prepared for the rough water. They will have hopefully seen the course. They'll know where to expect the worst of it, so they will be prepared to make decisions about their steering if it comes to it.
Okay, well, the sun is out now, so hopefully brighter conditions, hugely, but much more enjoyable for the spectators. Zoe and Kath are going to head off to the commentary box, where they will join Andrew Cotter, who will describe for us the Cancer Research UK Women's Boat Race of 2016.
You ready? Let's go! Yeah, for those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, yo. This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name. This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name.
Good afternoon. You think of all the days and the weeks and the months, all the work that's been done, and that was done to pay off in the next 20 minutes or so. The waiting almost over for the start here. You can see the life in the river though already from our overhead shots, and that wind direction there as they sit in the start is coming from the left and a little bit behind. So you think perhaps of the Thames as flowing out to sea and flowing in a linear direction, west to east, east to west, but it doesn't. It weaves around. So they head north-northwest first of all, and then after Hammersmith Bridge and into the second half of the race, they will really turn around into the wind, and the river will be venomous out there. Wayne Pommen is going to be out in the river for us, and it's pretty lively already, Wayne.
It is. There's a heck of a wind here. I can see it right here. I'm only a few feet away from the water, and there's gusts. And it's going to be hard for these boats to stay straight off the start. Both coaches are going to have to work very hard to stay aligned and have a high-quality start. These minutes on the start are nervous enough as it is. The minutes feel like hours, and it's even worse when there's this kind of wind out today.
And the start is so important. You might not think it would be in a race of almost 6,800 metres, 4¼ miles, but the first few strokes really are the sort of building blocks. They set the race for you, and to get a good start is vital. But you can see also the difficulty here that in these conditions the boats will start to splay around a bit, and first of all they can't really drift. They're on stake boats, they can't drift too far ahead of each other, but they can move in different directions and start to point towards one bank or the other. And you see the tide coming in as well. The women are racing a couple of hours before high tide. The men will race an hour before or so, so there's still quite a bit of river to rise there, but it flows with them because the tide is coming in. And we look down at Putney Bridge, the famous starting point, and just beyond that of the boat race. The boat race is, there's a little stone on the south bank there, just to the left of your picture, the University Stone, which marks the starting line of the boat race. And Oxford are on the Surrey station. They won the toss and chose that. They believe that's the favoured side. Just as Cambridge in the men's race, they won the toss and chose Surrey as well. You can see the boats moving again just a little bit, about a minute or so away from the start at Cambridge. Can this Cambridge crew somehow bridge the gap that was clearly there last year and has been in recent seasons as well? Because Oxford have dominated. They certainly dominated last year. Both crews with 3 returning blues: Oxford, Anastasia Chitty, Maddie Badkett, the president, and Lauren Kedar, and Cambridge with Ashton Brown, Daphne Marchenko, and Rosemary Ostfeld, the cocks. The umpire for this one is Rob Clegg, who previously umpired the men's boat race in 2011. There he is, in the Isis Goldie race last year. He rode in 94, 95, 96 for Oxford. That was in the middle of a period of domination for Cambridge. So his rowing days, I'm not particularly happy. Arms in the air suggest, tell us that Rosemary Ostfeld is not happy with the way her boat is sitting at the moment. Once the arm drops, that will signify that she is ready. You see Morgan Bain and Williams, the Oxford cocks on the far side, is happy with things at the moment. But her arm may go up in a moment. The boat's, as I say, drifting. So ready to go now. Rosemary Ostfeld puts her hand back up again. Both crews have to be satisfied that their boat has just the right direction really to start. It's, as I say, they're drifting around in the river, but Rob Clegg is ready. I see the arm of Rosemary Ostfeld up again. And Morgan Bain and Williams has her arm up. Once that goes down, attention go will be the simple instruction. Both arms up so quickly, Kath. It's so important to get this good start.
It's going to be crucial. We've seen with lots of races that if you're not ahead in the first period, then it's really hard to come back. So it's crucial to commit.
Rosemary Ostfeld happy. I think Morgan Bain and Williams has her arm up. You can see the Oxford boat ready now.
Go!
So attention go, and they do go. And Oxford just sitting there for a moment on the start as Cambridge seem to get out more brightly. So they'll lift up here, the stroke rate creeping up over 40. It's a real bruising effort for the first minute or so, and then they'll settle into things. But this start is so important, Zoe.
Yeah, Oxford really did not look ready for that start there. Actually, contrary to the practice starts that I saw them do on Friday, when they looked they looked really good and really sharp. So I'm quite surprised there that they really seemed to struggle with that first stroke. They were just, as you said, waiting. But as you can see, they're coming back into it now. They have a very strong mid-race pace. So once they get off this initial fast, hard, early part of the race, they'll be into it.
I see just a fraction down at the moment, Oxford. Cambridge will have the initial advantage of the sort of quarter-length advantage of the initial bend round by Craven Cottage, but Oxford are already starting to put a bit more of a push on after that sluggish start where they really were caught napping a little bit on the stake boats.
Certainly going to help the Cambridge girls to feel that it's gone well from the first moment, to let them settle themselves down as their bodies start to kind of deal with the adrenaline that's been released and the sheer intensity of that start as well.
Well, beautiful conditions at the moment, certainly to look at. It is a bit bouncy out there, and will get even more lively, as we said, past Hammersmith Bridge once they turn around into the wind. But you can already see that Oxford have made up for that start and almost beginning to eke ahead there, as they'll have to try and come around the outside of the initial bend, which will favour the Cambridge crew on the Middlesex station, on the sort of north side of the river. But Cambridge are working hard now to hold on to Oxford. They're putting it in a bit of a push.
It's going to be a big commitment point here for the girls. The Cambridge girls have talked about the importance of coming out of the start and getting into something that maintains some of that intensity, that keeps them in the race, that will give them a chance later.
You can see here that Cambridge's stroke rate is slightly higher, so they're taking more strokes per minute than Oxford, which suggests that the pace they're setting now might be a little bit more unsustainable, whereas Oxford are on something slightly longer, slightly lower, could be more sustainable for them.
Well, getting close to clashing, and Rob Clegg, the umpire, just warning. He'll be looking to warn the crew, warn the cox who's straying into the other crew's water. Both crews, both coxes know the line that they are allowed to take. Many hours training and racing on the Tideway, but they are creeping together.
Cambridge! This actually means that the coxes are fighting for that water, and getting the advantage on this first bend is going to be crucial. And of course the crews are looking for the same line, so it's inevitable that when they're side by side, they're going to be pulled in closer together.
And the reason they both look for that racing line is because the fastest water is usually the deeper channel, which is closer to the middle here. It actually comes out a bit from Craven Cottage. It's quite far out from the Craven Cottage, the north bank, and they're both fighting for that fast water at the moment, and it's a good race in the early stages.
Cambridge cox Rosemary Osvald has really done a good job there of holding Oxford out on that initial bend. She's done a lovely job of steering around there. Oxford also a good job of staying with her. I think she's doing a great job of keeping her crew in the race now, but I suspect as they come off this initial bend, Oxford are going to start to creep out on the straight.
Well, not too much between the crews in terms of their bows cutting through the water, and also the blades coming close together as well here. We might be getting closer to our first clash, but then Oxford, after a little bit of a warning from Rob Clegg, just drift out a little bit. And we'll see a great shot here of how wide they have to come round past Craven Cottage, because the faster water is much closer to that Surrey bank, the south bank on the left-hand side as we look.
It is good, aggressive coxing from Rosemary Osvald for Cambridge. And of course, when we get that overhead view, for us it's really easy to see where they are on the river and where the best place to be is. But when you're actually sitting in that boat, as Zoe will remember, it's really difficult to get that same perspective.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the hardest things about coxing the boat race, is knowing where that best line is. And as I know from my own horrible experience of the boat race, is that you can do a lot to make mistakes as a cox. And this looks like a significant moment now for Oxford as they're coming onto the straight away from Cambridge's bend.
There are little stages within races where coxes will ask for a push, and a push will be put on. It certainly seems to have happened there for Oxford, and Cambridge had that initial advantage of the quarter-length bend round Craven Cottage, but even with that, Oxford have taken out almost half a length there.
Yeah, this is a big moment. Oxford have made a move. Cambridge have been really aggressive coming out of that start. They did what they wanted, I think, what they talked about earlier in the week, which was making sure they had a good start and then kept up the intensity. For them, it's now they've got to find something that can give them that speed per stroke.
Now we can hear Rosemary Osvald there, the very, very experienced Cambridge cox, a returning blue, and she worked with the men's crews as well, and she's trying to dig in her crew. Let's listen into the coxes.
Push it again! Legs! Legs! Keep crushing! You've got it! Legs through! Legs through! Legs through! Keep going, guys! All right, I need you to go now!
There's cries and and work that you're very familiar with, Zoe, and you can hear what she's trying to do. Just constant encouragement.
Yeah, you can start to hear the desperation creeping in there. She knows that this is a really vital moment to try and keep her crew in the race. And I do think they've done a very good job up to this point against a very strong Oxford crew. However, it looks like that Oxford crew have now made their decision to start to move away.
What you can really see is that inches per stroke thing that's happening for Oxford, where they've just got that tad more length. So the oars are in the water for that little bit longer, and that of course adds up each stroke, 35 strokes per minute, where you're just inching away, and they added that push on top. They've got more length in the water, and Cambridge are going to struggle at this point in the race to find more length. But there is everything you do day by day, that training to row a long stroke that under pressure you can maintain, and Oxford are doing that better at the moment.
And as they sail past one of the familiar sights of these races, the furniture depository, former furniture depository, very expensive flats now, you can see that Oxford are beginning to edge clear, and it'll come the point where Ashton Brown in the bow seat for Cambridge, she's the only one who can see anything of the Oxford boat, and as they push up towards Hammersmith there, from overhead we can see they're getting close together again, but these are desperate times for Cambridge, because now the big bend all the way around will favour Oxford, so this is going to be a hard 6 minutes for Cambridge. Wayne Pommen down in the water, what do you make of it?
Well, it's been a heck of a race up to this point, but Oxford, after that bad start, they've just had the better rhythm, the longer rhythm. And then about a minute ago, I saw them put in a big push, 20 to 30 strokes, and you can see the difference it's made. If they can do that again, they'll be able to walk away and get in front of Cambridge here in the next minute or two.
Once more, Rosemary Osfeld and Morgan Bainter-Williams trying to join their crews, but Cambridge hanging in there at the moment. In fact, they haven't lost anything. If anything, they've crept a little bit back, and once more they're coming close together, and the bow blade is going to come close to the stroke blade.
This corner is going to really hurt the Cambridge crew. They've done a great job to get back, and they have not broken contact, so Oxford should not come across in front of them at this point.
I think that was both crews coming together, and as you could hear, the umpire was warning for both crews to move apart. But for me, that was far too close. You know, you don't want to clash in the boat race. I know that full well, and that looked a little too risky. But having said that, Rosemary Osfeld is keeping her crew in the race with this steering.
This is a great job not to have lost contact. It really looked like Oxford were just going to move away, but the Cambridge girls have really fought hard to try and hold on contact. Can they now? It's critical. It's hard for them on the outside of the bend. The advantage is with Oxford. What can they do?
But just in the last 30 seconds, though, because the blade of the two-seat for Cambridge, Fiona Macklem, was very close to stroke of Lauren Kedar, but now Oxford have put in another push, or perhaps Cambridge have faded slightly. They really got to hang on now, the light blues. They're coming together again, and this bend, of course, you see the big bend that sweeps round, all favours Oxford, and they really are in charge of this race now.
They're in choppier water too, which is much harder when you're behind. And the advantage on the course is definitely with Oxford, but Cambridge are battling hard.
But this is what we promised you, though. As soon as you come around this bend, and they're heading into the wind now, as you go south-southwest, once you get round this bend into Chiswick Reach and past the 8, you can see the river and just how they're having to battle with it, and which crew can cope with these conditions better.
Yeah, it's just one of those things with the boat race. You've got to deal with this water. In an Olympic event, you have time to postpone, but this is not something we do in the boat race. I went out yesterday and coxed the veterans boat race, and the water down here was absolutely appalling. So good to see both crews still maintaining their length, still rowing reasonably cleanly into this rough water.
And there's a better view of it. From up high, it looks fairly placid, but down there you can see just how they're grappling with. These boats are designed, even with the airfoil riggers, to cut through the water. But this is a real test of all of the techniques.
Yeah, you can really see on the right-hand side of the picture here how rough the water is, and this might affect Cambridge more than Oxford. They do look like they have slightly rougher water, and you can see now how Oxford are starting to move away and how those waves, really hitting Cambridge hard there.
They are getting filthy water sent down to them. I mean, as if it weren't bad enough, but now they've got all sorts of puddles and dirty water coming down, so it's very, very difficult. The Cambridge boat is rocking around, and near impossible conditions to row in, but Cambridge are trying to maintain contact. Wayne Pommen come in again.
It is absolutely brutal down here, and Cambridge had the worst of it because they were furthest from the shelter of the Surrey bank. And in the last 30 seconds, I think Cambridge have taken on real water. I saw a few big waves come into their boat. I assume they've turned the pumps on, and it's looking very heavy now. And you can see Rosemary Osveld heading for the shelter of the Surrey bank to try and get out of it.
Absolutely.
And now Oxford, for some reason, they're way over in the worst of the waves, and now they're struggling.
That's a strange move that they made there, Zoe. You're looking at Oxford there and with a quizzical look on your face.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they were thinking there. They had the Surrey line, they had the better water, and Oxford do seem to head over into the rougher water there. Oxford's cox, Morgan Bailey-Williams, incredibly experienced, huge character, lots of charisma, but I'm not sure what, and now she's crossing back
they're in
over.
contact again.
Well, I mean, they're almost heading at running speed towards each other there, but that was a dramatic part of the race, and Oxford clearly thought better of their decision there and decided to come back. Now, they've got clear water, but they have the bend anyway. They were the boat on the Surrey station, but that has almost let Cambridge back into it.
This bend is running out fast for Oxford. They had plenty of clear water, and that mistake has really cost them. Cambridge do have a little bit of bend left for them after we get past Barnes Bridge.
Look at the water. There is water being taken on there. The electric pumps will be working very hard. They've got the splash guards on as well, the splash boards, but Cambridge are hanging on once again. I'm not sure Oxford will make that mistake once more of a desperate lunge to the north bank.
There's a major steering error there, certainly by Oxford. And the thing is, can Cambridge really capitalise on that? It's very difficult to make moves in rough water. It's hard to add anything to what you're doing. You're in a survival mode to some extent. You're constantly thrown off your rhythm by the conditions. But hopefully they'll have got a sniff of how much they caught them up. And now they need to try and do that, make a move somehow, and get some confidence that Oxford are making mistakes out here.
They work so hard all the time on your technique, and it comes down to minutiae as well, and just feathering the blade, and then suddenly you come out in these conditions and it's a very different prospect. Oxford have pulled clear again. You can see the lead that they have, but what life there is. The river in venomous mood today, and it's going to play a major part in this race, and certainly in the men's race to come.
That's what makes racing on the Tideway such a glorious thing. It is alive, it has character, it has personality, it gets angry, and this is an angry day from the Tideway.
Oxford, though, still with that lead, almost a length clear now, and they've still got the advantage. Their bend is almost played out now, but they still have the slight advantage of this large sweeping bend, and they'll head down towards Barnes, and now that order seems to have been restored. But just for a moment, Oxford, there was a fright for them there, and Morgan Bailey-Williams, I'm sure, will look back on that, but they've settled into a better rhythm now and are reasserting their authority in this race.
It looks like there's just a bit more life in the Oxford crew. It looks to me as if they're rating slightly higher as well, and they've just got that kind of lightness, whereas it looks heavier in the Cambridge boat. And when it starts to get heavy, then that tends to continue. It's hard to get out of a place that it's so heavy each stroke. How do you lighten it? Because actually by putting more effort in, everybody doing it together, that's the way to lighten it. But at this point, with this level of fatigue, that's incredibly difficult.
As we leave the pier here, we're coming into the last third of the race. It does look like Oxford have a commanding lead, but they don't seem to be moving away. Cambridge are sticking with them, and it could be interesting to see what happens if the water stays rough.
Yes, with that clear water, though, the final bend, there's no advantage for Cambridge because Oxford can choose their line, but you can see the chop in this water, and there are fascinating conditions today. And the flotilla behind is chopping at the water as well, but Rosemary Osveld is trying to make a bit of a move as well towards that Middlesex bank, and they're just hanging in there. It's a couple of lengths there. Certainly Oxford are in control, but there's still an outside chance for Cambridge.
It'll be interesting to see what happens when they come up now towards Barnes Bridge, because on the Surrey side, so Oxford side of the river, there is a real patch of dead water. It's very, very flat, it's very shallow, it's very slow. Does look like Oxford are crossing over now, obviously looking to stay out of that shallow water, but if Cambridge do move back on them, Oxford will have to move back out towards that slower water.
You can see Cambridge struggling with the water there, some big waves that really rocked them off. The boat rocked each way. It's tough going out there, and there isn't much shelter. This is the worst bit now in terms of waves.
Looks like Oxford have made a big move out of the stream here. They have decided they don't want to be in that rough water. They're moving straight into the bank. I'm not sure if that's going to pay off for them.
A risk.
They are a long way out of the best water now, a long way out of the stream.
Well, this is a test of coxing and the stream. This is we're finding out really where the stream is and whether that roughness is slowing them down or in fact giving them an advantage. All the Tideway legends who talk about it will say you've got to stay in the stream.
Well, shallow, slack water towards the bank, but they believe, Oxford, that there is greater shelter there, so there might be smoother water, and it sort of will cancel out the lack of the stream to help them. But I'm not sure what Oxford they're going to that Surrey bank, and yes, heading for that shelter, but I think Cambridge have coxed this rather better and given themselves still a chance. There's still that couple of lengths, 3 lengths even perhaps now, but Cambridge staying resolutely on the more established racing line, and Oxford heading for shelter. Wayne Pommen coming again.
This is just the most interesting steering I have ever seen, at least in the last 10 years in a boat race. The creative coxing that's going on today. You know, Morgan Bain Williams of Oxford making a hugely calculated move here to head for safe water along the Middlesex bank. At first I thought she was crazy, but now that I see what's happening to Cambridge in front of me, I think maybe Morgan was the smart one. Cambridge are half sunk here.
Well, Wayne, we can see
Oxford are rowing away.
I could see white horses engulfing the Cambridge boat there, so you can see the difficulties that Cambridge are in. So all sorts of trouble now, and that pump will be working so hard in that boat, and you can see the water standing in that shell. And Cambridge in real difficulty. Well, this is just about where the Cambridge men's boat sank in 1978. It would take an awful lot for a boat with modern appliances to sink now, but that's you can see the difficulty that Cambridge have.
The pumps are not going to help them at this point. This is not something the pumps can do.
There is a good chance that this Cambridge boat will not make it to the finish line.
Well, Cambridge are going to lose this race, and now it's a battle to finish. That's the view from Rosemary Oswald. You can see what she's having to deal with, and you can see the water splashing around inside this boat, and it's creeping almost over the bow there into the seat of Ashton Brown, and real bother now. And suddenly that decision by Oxford to head for the shelter of the bank is a masterstroke. Cambridge are in real trouble here.
I think Cambridge had already shipped more water earlier as well, so they were carrying more water from after Hammersmith. It's going to be incredibly difficult for them. I mean, they're not racing, they are literally in survival mode now.
Well, their stroke rate has dropped right down. Oxford a long way clear. They are heading for victory, not far from the finish now, but Cambridge are labouring their way through the evil waters today of the Thames. And it's graft for them simply to finish. They will shoot the central span of Barnes Bridge, and a rather more serene progress for Oxford, and Cambridge all the way back now. It's hard graft for them now.
If they can get a little bit of clear water, the pumps will start working for them. It's as there's more water filling in when the pumps can't keep up. So perhaps as they clear out of Barnes Bridge now, if they can stay a bit higher out the water, they might start to ship some of it back out, and you'll see the pumps just feed over the side of the boat. You'll see them shooting water out. But with water like this, I think they might not make it.
There have been no sinkings in the women's boat race to date, and I fear that we may be about to see one.
Oh, wow.
Yep, they are almost fully underwater now. I can't see how this Cambridge boat is going to make the finish line.
Well, what a moment this is. A red flag is being waved, and in the shadows of Barnes Bridge, Cambridge are sinking.
OK, Cambridge, you're going to have to try and steer to the side if you can. We're going to pick you up. If you want to keep going, keep going.
Well, history is being made, not the history we wanted to see today, that's for sure.
Well, they want to keep going. They are here at Barnes Bridge. They are, well, they've got about 1,000 metres or so to go, but they're heading to the side. They've been, they want to keep going, says Rosemary Oswald. They will all want to keep going, but is it even possible?
As I said, if they can find some shallow water, they might get some of this water out of the boat. They do just about seem to be going. I can't see how they're going to get to the finish line, but perhaps they will. They clearly want to finish this race.
Well, this would be a victory of sorts in itself if they can make it to the finish. Oxford will win this race. They are a long way clear, and they made the decision through Morgan Bain Williams to head for shelter. They tried once along Chiswick Reach and perhaps misjudged it there, but then later towards Barnes they did it, and it was a masterstroke. Oxford sail on, row on, push on towards victory here in the 71st women's boat race. A dark blue victory it will be again, and victory once more for the likes of Anastasia Chitty, Maddie Badcock, Lauren Kedar. But they are a long way clear of Cambridge, who have their own battle against the river itself, and they seem to now have made it to some relatively calmer water near the bank, but it's still a struggle.
This is not about racing anymore. Of course, it's just about their pride to finish the race at this point. I mean, they've been through hell and high water, quite literally. This is what you get in this race. It's not like Olympic racing. We're racing in March, which for itself, that means we have very different conditions. You can get all sorts of winds and weathers that you just don't have in summer racing. And we're on the Tideway, which is a whole different realm of training and racing than you get when you're in a course at the Olympics or training in the summer. It's a different world, and it brings all these other factors that the weather and the water throws at you.
But the moment will shortly belong to Oxford once again as they come up to the brewery and the finish just before Chiswick Bridge and all the way back. You can just see, hidden by the trees a little bit in the shelter of the North Bank, Cambridge are gamely battling on, and I'm sure they are going to finish this now. It seems to have cleared a little bit for them now, but it is going to be victory again in the women's boat race for Oxford. They've chosen their course through Morgan Bainham-Williams and through Stroke Lauren Kedar, Maddie Badcock, the president, Anastasia Chitty in her 4th boat race, Elo Lewick, the Estonian, Ruth Sidorn, Janneke Jansen, Emma Spruce, and in the bow seat, Emma Lukasovic. Oxford are going to win, and by a handsome margin as well. They have beaten Cambridge, they have beaten the conditions as well. They have mastered this river in all its devilishness today. Oxford win the 71st women's boat race.
I think Oxford have done a good job there of keeping it together. They made a couple of serious mistakes, not just off the start, but also that steering error down the Ayot. But they made an excellent decision to head for safety, and they were the better crew in terms of their ability to keep going through that rough water.
There's Elo Lewick and Anastasia Chitty embracing, and the smiles of the victors. Janneke Jansen and Emma Spruce, and then in the bow seat, Emma Lukasovic. And they have these moments that are such familiar moments to all who've watched the boat race over the years as they gather beneath Chiswick Bridge, and they are a long way in the distance, and Cambridge struggle on, and it has been a real struggle, but the fact that they're finishing it is something.
It has been a struggle, and it's a loss, and that's another tough blow for Cambridge, who've been trying to rebuild, to really come back and have a crew that can win the race. And I think it's important to remember in the first half of the race, they did really take it to them. They did really hang on. There were some positives there, but otherwise Cambridge haven't had enough on the day once more.
So it is going to be a 4th successive defeat for Cambridge in the women's boat race, but past the finish post they come, which is something. It will be of no consolation to them at all, because they know that in this race it is win or lose, all or nothing. But they have finished. They have been beaten though by Oxford. They have been beaten by the river as well today.
It's always a desolate feeling. There is no consolation at this point. What they've been through, the tests that they've had the whole season, how far they've been stretched, tested themselves to prepare for this, and in the end, the result is a loss, and that means nothing to take home.
Well, in recent years, I've not seen a more graphic demonstration of what the river can do, though, and why this race and the men's race, why they are so special and so different and so difficult at times.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what makes the boat race more exciting and more interesting to the spectator than some of the Olympic courses, is the fact that these races can change so quickly.
It's something they do in their preparation, so it's a fact to the coaches. You know, they haven't just got to do technique, they've actually got to make sure they know the river and they can prepare the coxes to make those decisions that we really saw the Oxford Cox thinking about. Cambridge Cox had that choice to make as well.
And I wonder if, as well, the men watching, they've got the 2 reserve boat races to come as well. They will all be fascinated viewers of this, because there's so much to learn from this race. Again, you know, this is all about this particular race for these 2 crews, but the races to come, they will be very, very interested in what's happened over the last 20 minutes.
All the other crews have actually boated already, so it'll be interesting to see if they're getting any feedback from their coaches somehow from the bank of what's happened during this race, because that would be vital information.
And a word, Zoe, for Morgan Bainham-Williams, because it was a big decision. We saw that early decision to steer across from Chiswick Reach and make for the North Bank, and we thought at the time I think it was the wrong decision, but later on it proved to be the right decision to go later on for the shelter.
The first decision was definitely a mistake, and she got lucky that Cambridge didn't close up on them more, but the second decision was definitely the right decision there. And you saw Morgan standing there waving their penguin, which they found floating around somewhere and became their crew mascot. So that was what she obviously had with her in the boat there, ready for this this part of the race.
So good job, though. Penguin was not in the Cambridge boat. It would have come to a sorry end. But I thought for a moment there, coming up to Barnes Bridge, that Cambridge were going to sink. And I mentioned we hadn't had one in the men's race going 1978, and it was Cambridge who, in a very similar position around Barnes, went down. But they made for the shelter under the guidance, I think, and sensible guidance of umpire Rob Clegg. They made for the relative shelter of the bank and made it home. But the victory, everything belongs to this crew, to Oxford. Once again, they have won the women's boat race. See Emma Spruce coming forward, and Anastasia Chitty, what a strength she has been as well. I say president last year in her fourth blue boat, her fourth victory. So I say what a record she has.
It's a really class crew. You can see there's experience from last year in it. There's been a real core that have competed for many years for Oxford, that have really contained and sent on from year to year, sent forward that experience of what's required to win.
So there we are. Oxford are the winners and steered very well in the end by their cocks Morgan Bainham-Williams. Let's hear from her now.
Yes, Andrew, thank you very much indeed. Morgan Bainham-Williams is alongside me, high-fiving everybody as she gets off the boat. You know, the guys in commentary were saying pretty risky tactics today. Just talk us through the strategy.
I mean, it got pretty wavy out there, and I think there was a point where I realised that the waves were outweighing the benefit of the stream, and in the inshore zone it's got a lot less waves in there, it's got some more shelter, so I just tried to get the guys over there as quickly as I could without getting any water on the boat. And we had the pumps on and off all the way, trying to get the water out, and you know, they did such a good job where the wind's picking up and you could barely hold onto the blades, but they just kept getting them in, tried to drive them out the wash as best I could. And then once I came around the corner from Barnes and I could see that the stream was probably pretty good there, the waves were down a bit, and I just thought, right, let's stay there and get back out there.
Brilliant performance. Would you agree you didn't get off to the best possible start, Morgan?
I think our four-girl may have missed a stroke, but things happen and you've got to remain focused on the stroke we're on.
The winning president, Maddie Badcock, is alongside us as well. Maddie, many congratulations. Big hugs here. Amazing performance from your crew, but also your cocks. What a performance today.
Yeah, we're so lucky to have Morgan. She absolutely smashed it. I think those conditions are probably worse than anything I've ever rode out on the Tideway, but honestly, we train all year to be ready for anything, and we're just so glad that it's turned out well for us.
And you were here last year victorious. How does this compare to last year, Maddie? As president.
Last year I was over the moon to win, but this year, in some ways, it means so much more to me because I've worked so hard to help build this team, and this was an insane race, and I'm so glad that our training for the whole year really paid off.
And you have such an incredible team spirit in this crew, don't you, Maddie?
Yeah. This team is probably the best team I've ever been part of, and because we care so much for each other and we care so much for Morgan, and we've built so much over this year, I think that's what got us through the race, really.
Let's have a word with Anastasia Chitty as well. I think Anastasia can join us. Many congratulations. We chatted last year when you won as president, and obviously Maddie has that role this year. How does this compare to last year, Anastasia?
Well, the race was very different.
Entirely different, completely different conditions.
Never imagined they could be that bad. And we ended up going down the inside of the river. It was a different kind of rowing, but so exciting, and you just decide those are the conditions you want to race in, and it's pretty good fun.
Morgan got her tactics and her strategy absolutely bang on today.
Oh yeah, she did a great job. We saw Rosemary move over from Cambridge and we were like, we need to get over there. And yeah, once we realised that's where the better water was, Morgan did a great job.
4 in a row. How does that sound?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I've just been so fortunate to row with 4 years of amazing Oxford women, and I've got another couple of years at Oxford, and yeah, hopefully it'll keep going.
I shall let you go and rejoin the victorious party. Thank you very much indeed. We shall see you for the presentation. Thank you, Anastasia.
From the delight and the pride of the Oxford crew victorious to the desperation of Cambridge, how much that hurt, but how well they did to finish, because particularly down Chiswick Reach, that boat was taking on so much water that it was actually up over their thighs. How on earth they managed to keep above water just enough to get to the finish line. Catherine Granger with me. I mean, that was more like watching the America's Cup than watching rowing.
And I bet they were wishing they had huge sails to help them. It was very, very dramatic. I mean, the cameras can pick up a lot of it, as we're seeing now. But to be honest, as an athlete in that position, when the water is filling everything below them, the whole boat is full of water, the pumps are not responding quick enough to get the water out. And you're fighting it. So to be honest, for Cambridge to finish at all is a huge achievement for them. There was a point in the race where they stopped racing and had to just try and finish the race. I mean,
here, Rosemary Osfeldt puts her hand in the air. I think to say I want to carry on. So the red flags were going. I mean, she is almost sat in water there, or she is basically.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the bit of the boat that she's sitting in is the lowest part, so it's actually underwater at that point of the race. The umpire brings out the red flags, which say it's okay to stop. It's actually for a safety precaution they can stop, and it's the Cambridge decision to finish the race. Now, this is a race, as you heard in the commentary, that they've spent months and months and months preparing for. Nobody wants to finish 2/3 of the way down the course, so I think it was the right decision from the cops and from the athletes to finish the race. But now they'll just be desperate, upset to lose, but then upset to lose in that way.
Yeah, well, it looks as if Jason is right there with them, so let's hear the reaction of the Cambridge crew.
Yeah, Claire, thank you very much indeed. The President, Hannah Roberts, is here. And look at this. All the crew decided to come and surround Hannah for this interview. And Hannah, you must be utterly heartbroken. But, that's an amazing end to a race, carrying on such remarkable team spirit.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really an option that we didn't finish. We put so much into this year, and obviously once we started going down, the result was not going to go our way, but we had to see it through to the end.
Your boat appeared to be taking on so much water. What happened? When did you realise it was all going wrong?
Through the second half of the year, it just started coming in faster than our pumps could get it out, and once it was filling up, there was no way the pumps could overcome it.
I know it's defeat. I know you've worked so hard over the past couple of months. How proud are you of your wonderful crew who've gathered around you today?
I'm so proud. I couldn't ask for better women to do this with, and I'm just so proud of it.
Commiserations. Thank you very much indeed. I know that's been difficult. Thank you very much indeed, Hannah. Well done, team. Thank you very much.